Once, a man came to Gautam Buddha seeking help to control his emotions. He was constantly struggling with anger and frustration, and he did not know how to manage his feelings. Hoping Buddha could offer some guidance, he explained his situation. Buddha smiled kindly, asked him to sit down, and said, "Let me share a story with you. In a distant land, there was a powerful king who ruled a vast and prosperous kingdom. One day, this king decided to visit a neighboring kingdom where the king was renowned for his wisdom. The visiting king thought he could learn something valuable from this wise ruler. When he arrived, the neighboring king welcomed him warmly and arranged a grand feast in his honor. The table was filled with delicious food, and the visiting king felt greatly honored by this gesture. As the two kings sat down to enjoy the meal, the visiting king noticed a small fly that had landed in his bowl of soup. Annoyed, he immediately called for his servant to bring him a fresh bowl. As he felt disgusted by the sight of the fly, the neighboring king observed this, smiled gently and said, "Your Majesty, please don't let a small fly upset you. It's just a tiny insect, it doesn't matter." But the visiting king, still irritated, replied, "I cannot tolerate such things. Even something as small as a fly can ruin my mood." Hearing this, the wise neighboring king smiled again and responded, "It's not the fly that ruined your mood, Your Majesty. It's your reaction to it. You have the power to control your emotions. Don't let them control you." The visiting king was struck by the wisdom in these words. He realized that it wasn't the fly that caused his frustration, but how he chose to react to the situation. On his way back to his own kingdom, he thought deeply about what the wise king had said. Upon returning home, he decided to make a change. He began practicing the art of not reacting impulsively, especially in situations that would usually stir his emotions. Over time, the king discovered that when he did not react hastily, he remained calm. Even in difficult situations, his ability to stay composed allowed him to think more clearly and make better decisions. He felt more at peace and his leadership improved. This valuable lesson, the power of not reacting, is something that all of us can learn from. We often react without thinking, which can lead to arguments, misunderstandings, and emotional distress. However, learning not to react doesn't mean suppressing our emotions. It is essential to acknowledge what we feel. Emotions are a natural part of being human, and it's important to recognize them. But instead of reacting immediately, we should pause, take a moment to process what we are feeling, and then respond thoughtfully. This practice can prevent unnecessary conflict and help us maintain our peace of mind. On the other side of the world lived a young man named Michael. Michael, like many people, was very emotional. He often reacted quickly and impulsively. Whenever something upset him, his temper would flare up and he would say things in anger that he would later regret. This led to arguments and hurt feelings, especially with his friends and family. Michael knew that his reactions were causing him harm, but he was not sure how to change. One day, after another heated argument, Michael decided it was time to take control of his emotions. He couldn't continue living with a constant cycle of anger and regret, so he began practicing mindfulness and meditation, hoping that it would help him become more aware of his emotions. These practices made a difference. Michael started noticing his emotions as they arose, as he found that when he paused and took a breath, he was able to calm himself before reacting. At first, it was challenging for Michael. He still felt anger and frustration, but he resisted the urge to act on these feelings immediately. Instead, he would take a moment to breathe, assess the situation calmly, and then respond in a more thoughtful way. With time, he found it became easier to control his emotions. His relationships began to improve as there were fewer arguments and misunderstandings. He was able to communicate more calmly and thoughtfully, and this strengthened his bonds with others. One day, a close friend came to Michael for advice. His friend was going through a tough time and was feeling deeply upset. Michael listened to his friend's problems with patience and offered kind, comforting words. After their conversation, his friend said, "Michael, you always know what to say. You never seem to get angry or upset, no matter what's happening." Michael smiled and replied, "It's not that I never feel angry or upset. I've just learned how to control my emotions and not let them control me. It's a skill that has improved my relationships and brought me more peace." His friend was impressed and asked how he had learned this. Michael shared his experiences with mindfulness and the power of not reacting. He encouraged his friend to try these practices for himself, explaining that it takes time and patience, but it's well worth the effort. His friend was grateful for the advice and soon began practicing these techniques as well. Over time, Michael became known for his calm, thoughtful demeanor. People admired the way he handled difficult situations with ease and grace. His ability to stay composed in the face of challenges earned him respect, and he found a deep sense of inner peace. The lesson from both the king's story and Michael's experience is clear. We all have the power to control how we respond to the world around us. While we may not be able to control what happens to us, we can always control how we react. By practicing the art of not reacting, we can learn to stay calm, make better decisions, and improve our relationships with others. It is important to remember that anger is a natural emotion, but holding onto it can do more harm than good. As Buddha wisely said, holding onto anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. Letting go of anger brings freedom, and by practicing patience and compassion, we can live more peacefully and happily. The next time you find yourself in a situation that stirs your emotions, take a moment to pause, breathe deeply, and remember that you have the power to choose how to respond. By doing this, you will find greater peace, clarity, and strength in your everyday life.